Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Sometimes in life, you can walk through doors, you can open doors, or doors can be opened for you, but you need to be ready. You need to be willing to step up, step into positions and opportunities as they become available and are in your presence. So my guest today, Justin, has done a great job with that over his time in his career and his business and the work that he's doing today. So Justin, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hey, my pleasure, Zach. I'm happy to be on and looking forward to the conversation this morning. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. Now, I'd like to get started with just kind of where things began for you. You know, what was your plan, your career path that you were on when you got into the post-high school world?
Yeah, so post-high school world, kind of build on a lot of construction background through high school, worked on some
Okay.
farms in high school, things like that. And did a carpentry apprenticeship in high school to trade school. So I dove pretty quickly into the construction industry.
Okay.
And then, the good old recession hit.
Mm.
And what I thought was going to work well didn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that doesn't always, our plans are not always what we end up doing. So from there,
Definitely not.
what kind of opportunities did that lead you into when that door was closing a little bit for a period of time? What was the next step in your life?
Yeah, so the next step was formulating a plan for resiliency
Uh-huh.
over a while. So yeah, at that point, when the recession hit, I had a wife, 2 kids, been married a few years at that point. And when the construction industry kind of dropped off, it was all right. What's next? I need to go to school. I need to figure out how to pivot, and build a new career. So I did what anybody in that situation did. I went down to the Navy recruiter's office, signed up, and it was about an 18-month wait to get out of town to join the Navy, which, that was a really good opportunity for me. It really brought a lot of new resources, new skills, lots and lots of new education as well. So that was the big reason that I joined the Navy.
You made a statement there, what anyone would do in that situation. Now, I don't think that everyone would do the same thing, but you took that opportunity to join the Navy, which then led to opening new doors for development of new skills, training, and experiences that you would not have gained otherwise. And I believe also some educational opportunities that became a part of the benefits that were provided. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. There was a lot of education benefits. I did, quite a few certifications while I was
Mhm.
active. I did both, my associate's and bachelor's degree while I was active duty. And then once I ended up getting out after 6 years, I went back to school using more education benefits, ended up getting a couple master's degrees on it. So they really, so much education, so much experience opportunities provided.
Okay. Now, where did you find your area of expertise in when you were in the Navy?
Yeah, so I joined as a hospital corpsman, which was a huge left field for me. Didn't know anything medical, but hey, it kind of provided a paycheck for my wife and kids and myself. But ended up going on to be an aerospace medicine technician as my specialty. So did a lot of training, a lot of medical simulation training, operational training, things like that. But one of the unique things was I was attached to the Navy's Aerospace Medical Institute. And, it's an older command. It's been around for a long time. And my process improvement hat went on very quickly. So I started kind of assessing the command of how can we do things better? How can we be more efficient? Ended up designing and implementing multiple new departments, did some ERP rollouts, ended up getting a lot of cross-education experience in organizational management, organizational design and deployment. A lot of strategy, a lot of growth, a lot of lean, things like that. And I really took a knack for, or I should have found that I had a knack for it and took a liking to it quite a bit. Really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. So while in the Navy, you started to help create new programs and opportunities that were also refining and developing a skill set for process improvement, improving workflows, and areas of organizational management that are essential in really all areas of business, it sounds like.
Very much so. Yeah, it really, it's kind of a foundation of a lot of what I've come to do
Huh?
since the military. So, going on 17 years now, a lot of, strategic planning, process planning, standard operating procedures, what are strategic initiatives, how do you evaluate them with like key performance indicators, how do you build, regular touch points into cyclical processes, things like that. So a lot of that, yeah, I learned from the military. It was great.
Yeah. So now, did that lead you to, once you left the Navy, did you stay in the same place, or did you guys move about, or where was that you had kind of I guess really, yeah, that's the question. Did you stay in one place, or did you move about as you went through the Navy and afterward?
Yeah, so I was stationed in Pensacola, and Pensacola, Florida, and when we got out, we had actually moved to Northern California.
Okay.
Really, so I was injured while I was in, and ended up getting medically retired. Needed some more rehabilitation with my back and my legs, so we decided, good resource was let's move by some family, have a good support system in place. I needed a few surgeries. So I moved to Northern California by my wife's family and, continued to go to school. That was kind of my plan for a while. And we were up there for about 6 years. So moved up there, had a great experience. The university I was going to school at, actually a couple of years into my first master's, offered me a job to implement a lot of my studies and background and things like that. So I ended up taking a job at a university up there as well.
Mhm. Okay. So that, again, another door opened as you kind of were starting to walk down that path, and you pushed through and continued on it. So what was it that you were doing at the university when you started that?
Yeah, so it really was implementing my thesis. So my thesis was military higher education as a holistic ministry. So I built out this 14-point program that, based on a lot of research from, Student Veterans of America's organizational research and things like that. And so when I presented it to the board for approval, the university president got wind of it, asked me to meet. Next thing I know, I've got a job offer to be a director of something. And he goes, I'm very impressed by this program. I'm very impressed by your background. I want this at my university. So I took him up on the offer, and I took that job there and really doing a lot of restructuring and reorganization at the university so that we could implement the program from first point of contact to, alum programs, alum services, things like that. So every aspect of the university experience, every department had a piece of this program in it.
Wow. Okay. So now, did you settle into that and just continue on in that role and riding that out into the future?
So I did that for a few years, and it was great. I enjoyed it, but I was missing the tech side of the industries where that I worked in the medical arena, where like from the medical simulation part, I was heavily involved in tech. I also really missed Florida a lot, so I was excited to start looking at some new opportunities. So in 2020, we left Northern California and moved to Orlando, Florida. So another cross-country move there, big venture,
Yep.
and got back into the tech industry. Took an opportunity with a company. It was a medical software company. They brought me on to build out their medical simulation and training division down here in Orlando, and also lead their regional expansion from the Washington, D.C. area to Orlando.
Okay.
And I got to be here in Orlando, which was amazing.
Perfect. Coming back to the great state of Florida from Northern California. Now, sometimes when people make those moves, they get into a new position and a greater opportunity, and you still have that sense of, this is good. But then there's that point at which you get that feeling, that inkling, like, I want to do something more. There's something more that I want to be doing. Did that come to you, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, after a few years of being back here in Florida, the position, my former company was going really well. Had a lot
Mhm.
of growth, really excelled, built out a lot of stuff, created a lot of jobs, but I still didn't have what I wanted. And so, after a few years of doing that, I decided, you know what, let's just go out on our own.
Yeah.
I'd been consulting on the side for a number of years, from small business startups, a K through 12 charter school in Northern California that I helped start. So I've been doing it on the side for a while, and I just decided let's take this full time.
Mhm.
So I took it full time, notified my network. I was like, hey, I'm doing a rebrand of my company. So we rebranded from MXI Innovations to MXI Consulting. Took it full time, took it very public facing, started building out a lot of content, started publishing some of the books that I've been writing, really packaging, a systematic process I've been using at companies I've worked for, as well as some of the consulting clients I've had over the years. And just, got it out there into the market and started sharing it with everybody.
Now, how has that gone for you? Because I know for some people, again, they get out there in the world and they start to experience that, oh, this is a new challenge. And they liked that comfort or realized they liked that comfort of knowing that they were working for somebody. But then others, that's a new challenge that they take on wholeheartedly. What was that like for you?
For me, I guess I'm a different makeup than most people. I'm good with risk as long as it's calculated risk, not blind risk. So I don't just jump into things. I'm very strategic and very calculated. But it is, entrepreneurship is a huge risk, especially when you walk away from, a good corporate job, where you've got, lots of offerings, lots of security,
Mhm.
things like that. And but it was really like having that confidence and having that support system, having that faith that I know this is going to work. If I can do it for other people, I can do it for myself. It's the exact same thing. And so now it gives me the opportunity, rather than doing it for one company, I get to offer my services, and expertise to a number of visionaries who have an idea for a startup or have an idea for a small business, and they want to grow to that medium size. So I get to help out a lot of different people, which is great. I really enjoy that.
And what would you say is your primary target market as far as the companies that you're working with or that you have found to be your niche?
Yeah, so I always tell everybody I'm industry agnostic, because I've worked with trades, so construction
Yeah.
trades. I've worked with wellness center storefronts. I've worked with tech companies, financial companies, IT companies. I do tend to stay more in the tech space,
Mhm.
I just because I have a very large network in that space. So I try to position myself as a thought leader and have some good conversations about industry trends and growth, things like that, within the tech industry. But my roots started from construction. I know that world very well. I worked as a GC, worked for ground up builds. So I've helped companies grow their contracting businesses as well. I have advised mobile detailing companies that are building expansions, things like that, to new regions. So really, it's like I said, it's a systematic process, of how to, and not just mine, but how to grow a business, let alone
Mhm.
start it. And so it's custom tailoring like a bespoke solution to whatever that business is. So we develop a solid and sound business model that takes an idea and makes it sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. I think that it gives somebody who's establishing something, they have the vision, they have the idea, a model to follow, and that support in place to take it from idea to bringing it to the market, bringing it to fruition, and seeing some success and results of that. Now, is your process something that you do with a company like on an ongoing basis until they tell you we're done? Or how does that look for you? Do you work one on one mostly with teams?
Yeah, so like you said, it's kind of a custom solution. So
Okay.
I have a couple different offers. One is I do have annual retainer models where companies will bring me in, Not just to implement my strategic solutions roadmap, which is kind of my key solution and key offering to a number of companies. So we'll always start with that, and that's building out strategic plans, initiatives, key performance indicators, implementation matrix, things like that. There's some coaching that I do as well, executive level coaching, implementing some agile processes, things like that into businesses and companies. So, there's an annual need for that. So I do have companies I've worked with long term. And then I have companies that, hey, I need, every couple of years, I need a new strategic plan. I need a third set of eyes to come in and say, hey, what is the industry trend? Can you do some market research for us, and build out to our next growth model? So typically I'll work with companies like that for about 5 months, maybe 6 months, through the whole process to get them, on a good trajectory for the next couple of years.
Nice. I think that's great. And that's really sometimes all people need. It's just that support and that period of time as they move from one thing to the next and continue to grow. But again, there are others that it is a definite benefit to have that ongoing support year to year for that, whether it's a third set of eyes or that additional ongoing executive coaching and support. So I like that flexibility of the model that you have there. Now, are you the only person? Do you have other people working with you so that you can expand into larger markets or more people, more companies you're serving?
Yeah, so it's definitely built as a consulting firm.
Mm-hmm.
I never intended MXI to be, a solopreneur initiative,
Yeah.
Or endeavor. So I do have some people that work for me, as needed basis, things like that as the company grows. So I have, a number of consultants that do provide me support on specific projects, needs,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, different client areas. I have marketing support. I have administrative support and accounting support, things like that. So it's definitely more than one person. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It allows you to then focus a little more in on where your expertise lies rather than always doing every single thing yourself. Is there a point at which you would say to someone that's looking at doing something as an entrepreneur, whatever the industry is, that starts off doing everything themselves? Do you give any recommendations to anyone on like, hey, you need to start thinking about that next person to assist you or letting go of
hmm
some of these tasks? Or what are your thoughts on that?
So the moment that somebody writes an idea on the back of a bar napkin, you should be thinking about your scale up model. I always advise companies, you should be thinking about your scale up model as you're building your startup business plan. My company is proof of that. Some other companies I'm involved with are the same thing. Is we think about how do we scale, and we build the infrastructure. Now you scale it back as normal. You start with limited capital or limited investments, whether you're in a seed round or internally funded, self-funded models. But you always have the pieces in place. Excuse me, to be able to scale up should the opportunity arise. So it allows us to be very tactical in our business and the industry, because if we build things with the model that as work comes in, we can just scale what we already have versus let me just go and get revenue. And then once I get it, I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It changes from being reactive to proactive. I do not like, and nor do I advocate for reactive business.
Mm-hmm.
Having your infrastructure, having your processes, your plans, your teams in place, your workflow, your communication strategies, marketing strategies, things like that. Having that in place ahead of time, even just mapped out so you don't have to think about it. You can start executing it. Hey, if I'm going to go in this industry and I'm going to go after this contract, I need these 3 certifications. Well, do you have the revenue and the time or the bandwidth to get those certifications now? Then let's get them. If not, then you build it into your implementation plan. If I'm going after these contracts or if I'm going after this expansion, once I close my first deal, how long is it going to take me to get these certifications? Because maybe we can negotiate, net 15 payments or, upfront 90-day delivery on whatever it is. If you're just talking products, so you can use some of that revenue to close your certifications even. things like that, to be able to deliver on those products and services. Now, if you're going after opportunities where those are required before you can provide a service or a product, then you've got to look at how you can shuffle around revenue within the company to be able to get them early on. That way you don't have a roadblock to your success, but rather you kind of apply heat maps. What are high priorities that have to be done before I can close a deal or before I can, grow or offer my services to somebody else.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Have you been able to then work with any companies who have had that situation where they're already in reactive mode and then help them to reframe and kind of restructure a little bit of that road plan so that they're less in that mode?
Yes, 100% of every client.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Most startups, most small businesses are usually in a reactionary model. One of the interesting things about entrepreneurship is, in the last 5 years, we've seen the largest boom in entrepreneurship and startups. But a lot of people don't talk about the number of how many of those close. It's a very volatile rate. And so I've talked with people that have had great ideas with businesses that close. And usually it comes from poor planning, poor strategy, or lack of strategy, even lack of understanding how to build the business. Everybody wants to go, but you do have to have a moment of pause to know what you're doing. You have to be able to plan. So I like to make it so that every business is a story. So in our story, we know what the narrative is, but within that narrative, we'll have either milestones or, seasons, whatever it is, that when we do work, we know why we're doing it, where we're doing it, when we're doing it, and how we're doing it. But the biggest one is always the why we're doing it. And then importantly, because of the amount of competition in every industry now, is how do we measure it and pivot? So having those regular touch points and knowing how to measure our business actions, our business strategy. Is it working? Is it working well? Okay, let's go around and see what we can, reposition in the company to fuel that fire and keep it going. And then we've got to measure that trajectory. Or is it not working? Okay, let's close that. Let's fail fast, pivot, and implement a new strategy. But let's take away some lessons learned as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you did mention earlier that you started to release some content, some books, some white papers, some information that you had been putting together to help inform the processes and systems that you were helping people with. Are there places where people can access that content at this time?
Yeah, so I got a couple things. One is you can go to my webpage, MXIConsulting.com, but I also put together some freebies for the Freedom Founder audience. So if you go to go.mxiconsulting.com/Freedom Founder freebies. You can check that out and you'll have access to some of the ebooks, some different templates. And I actually recently published one of my master's classes on executive presence, which is a good coaching program that I offer as well.
I love that. I think that it's always a great thing when people are willing to put together content that they can share more broadly with the world. I mean, there are people who hold that tight to their chest and they don't want to get that out there because it seems so proprietary to them. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to help everyone in the world. So when people can see your knowledge, your experience, and what you have to offer, yeah, maybe they won't be able to implement it or won't want to implement it, but now they know this person knows what they're talking about, and they can go back to that person as an expert and have them come alongside them to assist them. So I think it's such a great way to help people understand what it is you're doing. So I want to ask a question. I'd love to ask all of my guests. If you were to be given $1 million today, no strings attached, how would you invest that in your business or another endeavor, and why?
So I would split it. It would all be investment. I would split the first 500,000 would be a split investment across both of my companies. There's some things that I want to develop and take to market. There's some tools and software I want to have developed, things like that, for some different models I'm working on. So that would be great for both companies. And the other half, I would put into, I'd do some research, but I'd put them into other startups or possibly real estate investment as well.
Love it. I think that's great. Diversification, but also like that expansion of where you're already taking things and then diversifying in some other investments, well-researched investments. But well, I love to hear the good work you're doing and how those doors have just opened over time. The recession hits, that kind of closes some opportunities at the moment. Go down to the recruiting office. That created such an opportunity for you to gain an education, experience, and expansion into new areas that, like you said, you weren't planning to go in the medical field, and you got into this medical corpsman type role, and you ended up doing some work in this technology and expanding beyond that, and helping a school startup out in California to consulting with multiple companies in the tech industry and also in the construction world. And I'm sure there are many more beyond that. It's just such a plethora of experiences you've had, Justin, that I know that you are able to and doing such great work and help for the people that you serve. And it's just impressive to hear about those experiences. So I want to ask you one more time, if you can give our guests the website with the freebies on it. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So it's go.mxiconsulting.com/freedom founder freebie.
Love it.
Go check it out. Go download some ebooks, download some master classes, things like that, given away for your audience today.
Awesome. Yes. Love that. I think that's a great way to get that introduction and just to see what you're doing. Now, if anybody does want to reach out and connect directly with you, what's the best way to do that?
They can reach out directly to me on LinkedIn. Very easy to find. Just look up Justin Spears. You'll see my face in there. Can't miss the hair and the beard. Or you can send me a email at solutions@mxiconsulting.com.
Perfect. Love it. Well, thanks again for joining me on the show today. I look forward to seeing what it is to come.